Hi there, my name is Matt and I am Testfully's founder. In today's video, I'm going to give you a quick demo of Testfully. We are not going to go to the details. I'm just going to go through the features very quickly. So hopefully that gives you an idea about Testfully, what you can do with this tool and how you can leverage it in your workflow. So our tool is available as a web application, as a desktop application for Windows, Mac, and Linux, and it comes in two flavors. It's a cloud native solution as well as offline only solution. So when it is offline, the data is stored in your computer. It never leaves your computer, and when it's cloud, obviously the data is stored in our servers, and that allows you to basically collaborate with your colleagues. That said, all of the features that I'm going to demo today are going to be available for both cloud and offline only. So what is Testfully? Testfully is a powerful API client. You can compare it with tools like Postman, Insomnia, Hopscotch. And what makes it different from other tools is that we have some special capabilities and features that allows you to do automated API testing easier. So that's why we think that it's a bit different from other tools. So here is the interface that you're gonna use if you decide to use Testfully. On the left side, you have your requests, which are organized in folders, and on the right side, you have the editor that you can use to change your request information. In terms of importing your data from other tools, you can just click on this plus button and come to the import option, and you have a few options. You can import data from Postman collections, Postman backup files, Postman environments. You can do from Insomnia as well. We do support Swagger as well. Also, Testfully allows you to export your data and import them again when you need to. So I've imported an example collection from the Rick and Morty API. So we can just use this one for demo. Your folders and subfolders are here. We don't support this concept collections. We have combined collections and folders into one feature basically. So let's have a look at what our folders offers. So let's go to the settings. We start from the variables. Variables are obviously a way for you to store key values and use them within your request. So the variables will be stored for a folder, and then you can use them within the request in that folder. One of the special features of Testfully is that for the cloud users, each of the users in your workspace can have their own override. So if you have an authorization token, API key, something that you don't want to share with your workspace, or a value of a variable is different from one user to another user, you can just come to the user tab and set those values here. So that's handy, and you can still use a combination. You can just set the global variables here, the stuff that are shared between workspace users, and just use the user tab for anything that is private to that particular user. Authorization. So you can set authorization scheme for a folder, and all of the requests within that folder will inherit that one. We do support basic authentication, bearer token, API key, and OAuth 2. We support all of the OAuth 2 grant types, and this should be sufficient enough for most use cases to be able to handle authentication settings. And obviously, we are going to add new schemes as well. In the header section, something that is quite unique to Testfully is that you can add one more request headers to all of the requests in your folder using this interface. We do also support the same concept, so you can have something exclusively for that user. All of these fields are basically capable of receiving variables. So you can just use two brackets, curly brackets, and for example, put a variable name here. So that's also supported. And query params are also supported with the same concept. You can share them and put the values here if you need to. So we have basically before request and after request. If you come from Postman, there is called a pre-request and test. So you can write modern JavaScript. We support ES 2020 syntax at the moment. So you can write modern JavaScript to manipulate your request, send bespoke HTTP requests before the main request, or interact with the response. So that's also supported. One good thing is that this API is actually compatible with the Postman API. So if you're coming from Postman, your script should just work without any change. Permissions is where you can keep a folder private, have it for everyone in your workspace, or you can cherry pick who do you want to give access to. For importing a request into a folder, we also offer a UI, so you can use this UI to upload your Explorer file and import it in any of the folders that you want. What is very cool is that in Testfully you can export the entire workspace data, or you can export a folder. Let's say that I just want to export this location folder. I can just click on that one and export it, and the export file will include only that information. Obviously, because you can have sensitive data in your variables or your authorization, you can customize your experience here, saying that I don't want to include certain information. And there are settings here as well that allows you to further customize your experience. For example, if you are planning to use Testfully for API testing and you want to run all of the requests in this particular folder in a specific order, you can just pick this one that you want to be random order, serial, or parallel. So we offer that one as well. So you can save it once and use it forever. What's very cool is that in Testfully you can set proxy settings per folder. So I can come here and say I want to use this proxy server for this particular API or particular folder, which is very handy. What's also very cool is that each folder and subfolder in your workspace will have the same set of features. So Rick and Morty is the root level and has all of the features, so is the location, which is a subfolder. And if you're coming from Postman, again, a lot of features that Postman offers is only available for the collection. So if you have a subfolder, you won't be able to have those features, but in Testfully, everything is available for all of the folders and they inherit the settings. So for example, my location folder does not have any authorization, but the request within location will inherit the settings from the Rick and Morty folder, because obviously it's a parent folder and there is the settings there. So if I can set this one to bearer token, all of them will inherit these settings. Folders are quite powerful, and there are a lot of features added to them, so it's very useful. You can drag and drop requests to order them. You can just move them to different folders with the drag and drop. And if you are into API testing, you can just come and run a folder based on any environment variable that you want, or you can just say use global variables. And you can see that all of the requests are sent for you. So that's another handy feature of folders. So let's open up a simple request and go through that one as well. Testfully is capable of sending requests to RESTful and GraphQL APIs. The API client is, in my opinion, very powerful and covers most scenarios. So you can set headers for your request, one or more, hide them, and activate or deactivate them. You can do same thing with query params. You can set authorization settings for a particular request as well, if that's what you want to do. You can set the body for a request. We do support JSON. There is a very powerful JSON editor included here in Testfully, so you can basically do any kind of changes. We do support GraphQL, as I mentioned, and you have form data, which you can also upload files. And if you have a URL encoded request, that's also supported. For each request, as I mentioned before, for folders, similar to the folders, we have scripting capabilities, so you can write scripts before or after. Same set of APIs is available there. And if you are interested in doing automated API testing but do not want to write JavaScript code, or you are coming from a tool like Postman that you need to write JavaScript code for testing your API, we have the validation features, which is basically a core feature of Testfully that allows you to validate basically your response. You can set the status code and how long it took for the response to come. You can validate the response body as well as the response headers. So what's very cool about response body validation is that it's not that you can validate the entire response. You can just validate one field or more. What's also very special that it's not all about the values. You can actually have contract testing, for example, schema of a field. Let's say I want to have a field called response, and inside the response I want to have another field called ID, and my ID field I want it to be a string. So that's how I can define the schema of my API. And every time that I run a request, Testfully would basically validate the response against this response. So you don't need to write code. You can just learn this declarative syntax, which is very powerful, and to test your APIs. Another thing that is very handy and unique to Testfully is called actions. What is an action? So actions are an alternative to writing JavaScript code. So if you don't want to write JavaScript code, but you want to extract the value from the response and set it as an environment variable, that's just one of the typical examples, is that you can create a, for example, action called set environment variable, and you can pick a few fields here and say, for example, I want to set user ID based on response body, and the path to the response should be response.id. And that will be extracted from the response and will be placed for you. Why this is this is available, why we have scripting and actions, I think these are core features. It's easier for us to handle them rather than you. There will be less bugs, and we can enhance it in future as well. So that's another cool thing about it. In the settings, you can disable SSL certification if you don't want it to be validated. It's handy for things like API development as well. So that's basically the request. As you see, it's quite powerful. But what I want to show you, let's just fire up a request and see what happens in the response bar. So that's the response widget. You have the response syntax highlighted for you, so you can easily check that one. Come to the headers, have a look at what's headers, and if there was any validation, you can see that this particular one failed because obviously that field doesn't exist. So that's already done for you. Actions, if you have any actions that is saved, it will show up here, but ignore this number because we haven't saved it. And in the request, you can see the actual request that you sent. And what's very cool, and we have here, is documentation. Documentation, it inspects your request and response, and based on that generates a very easy to read and understand documentation for you, which you can also save it for your request and permanently saved in your workspace, and it will be available for other users to use. So that's very unique feature of Testfully as well. So that's the folders request. Another thing that you can do is to work with environments. So we do support global values. So if you have a set of values that are basically shared among everyone in your workspace, you can just keep them here and save them, and everybody can use them. Also, we support environments. For example, I have a production environment, and it offers a few features, obviously environment variables, and that becomes available when you send a request against that particular environment. For each environment, you can have authorization settings, you can export it, and you can apply a few settings for that environment as well. If I come to the request screen, you can see that the environment option is available here. I can send my request to that particular environment. So that's really about it. As I mentioned, a powerful API client, which you can just use for that purpose. That's totally okay. And we allow our users to do it for API testing as well, which I showed you a few features. Also, another cool feature that I want to show you about API testing is request chaining, which is very unique to Testfully. I don't think that in this market we have any other tool that supports request chaining the way Testfully offers. So you can create a scenario that has multiple requests, and it's just executed one after the other one. So in this scenario, I have 2 requests, and I can say, for example, here, I will send a JSON request. Let's see what happens. So that was the first request went through. quite long response. Let's scroll a little bit more, and that's the second request. It's not just you're sending these two requests one after the other one. That's not what makes it special. What makes it special that these two requests are interconnected. So I can, technically speaking, read value from step one within step two in a declarative way without writing JavaScript code and do actions. So if you have those kind of scenarios and you're looking for a solution, this feature is available in Testfully. But if you don't need it, you can just basically delete this feature, this step, and just use one step. That's another cool feature of Testfully. We have basically API monitoring as well, which if you need to monitor your API endpoints for some functional or non-functional testing, you can basically use the same request that you already have for API monitoring as well. There's a Testfully CLI, which you can use that one to integrate with your CI/CD pipelines as well. It's just a standard terminal, basically CLI tool, which you can use with any CI pipeline. And that's about it. I try to keep it short. It's 15 minutes. Yeah, just give it a try. Create an account, or if you are not interested in creating an account, just Testfully offline. You can just use it without even creating an account. Download the app from our website, or try the web version and let us know how you feel about it. Cool. Thank you.